Welcome, investigator. Evil is on the rise. Crime is escalating. Our mission is to eliminate the crime by exposing evil, examine why it manifests, and highlight the brave souls that confront it every day. Join us as we work together to bring justice to every victim. Welcome to All Things Crime. Here's your host, Jared Bradley.
Well, I'll tell you one about a sad homicide. All right. Now, we were talking just about your recent district attorney friend from California. I think it was from California, you said. The next time you talk to them, ask them if they use this term, which we're, from what I understand, they use all over it's news to me, but they use all over the nation now. It's a Bronx jury. Okay. So I'll tell you a little Bronx jury story. We had I wasn't a detective yet. I was an anti-crime at the time. In anti-crime, basically, you're out to make gun arrests, and you're not a slave to the radio. In other words, you don't have to answer the radio. But we happened to be on this block. It was Davidson Avenue, and we got a call, and the call comes over the radio of a woman shot. All right, we happen to be like literally 4 or 5 buildings away from where this happened. Right, so we say, 5-2 anti-crime, we'll take that. We ran over there. We go up the stairs, and as we go up the stairs, it was only on the third floor. The music was very, very loud coming from this apartment. Not a good sign, right? And I was working with this fellow, Victor, at the time. And so, we do the thing like we always do. You unlock your guns, you're ready, got your gun in your hand. I go and I touch the door and the door is opened. All right. Not a good sign again. So I push the door open slightly. All right. The music is blaring. We walk in and it was a long hallway that went down with rooms off to the right. Right. So we got our guns out. We go to the first room. All right. Nobody's in there. Next one. Nobody. We get down to the last room, which was one of the bedrooms. And there she is, this young woman. I believe she was 15 at the time. All right. Had been shot in the face. And what do you call it? Well, actually, she had been shot in the head. What had happened was these other drug dealers had come and did a robbery of her boyfriend and her boyfriend's roommate, who were also drug dealers. Okay. And it had been very obvious that they were looking for drugs and for money. And they had tortured these two fellas. One was dead on the floor. He had been shot in the back of the head. The other one, they had tortured first because they had wrapped his entire face from his hairline to his chin in duct tape so he couldn't breathe. All right. And they had shot him like 3 or 4 times. But something that you'll know and your forensic people will like to know is that he was laying on the bed, and although he had been shot several times and his face was wrapped up, he was obviously survived for a while because his heart continued to beat and pumped out so much blood that it soaked through the mattress and through the box spring onto the floor below. And I mean, there was a puddle maybe 3-4 feet around of blood underneath the bed that had all soaked through the bed and gotten down to the floor below. So he had survived for a while after being duct taped and shot. Now, this poor girl, they had shot her in the head. They'd put the gun right up against her temple and pulled the trigger. But guns do strange things, or bullets do strange things. And so what had happened was it traveled down the side of her face, went through her mouth, took out a couple of teeth here, came out her mouth on the other side, okay, and left, I don't know, 3 or 4 teeth and a bunch of gums, gum tissue were actually sitting on the pillow next to where they had shot her. So how long she was unconscious, before she made the phone call, I don't know. But she was able to get the words out and, have us arrive. So long story short, we do our crime scene stuff. All the detectives from the squad come. We sweep through all of that. And now it's, I don't know, a year, maybe 18 months later. Okay. And we're sitting in court. And through all of this stuff, we'd all done our different testimony. I had gotten up as being first on the scene. I described the crime scene. I described everything that happened. And for whatever reason, they had tried all of these defendants separately. Okay. One guy immediately took a plea. Okay. Another guy didn't take a plea right away, which hurt him because if you take a plea right away, quite often they don't hammer you. If this trial starts, the judge is mad at you, so he hits you a little bit harder, right? He ended up playing once the trial had started. Okay. And then the shooter, the actual trigger man, okay, did not take a plea and was acquitted by the jury after all of that. After our testimony, all the police testimony, the little girl who got up, who's now like only 16, possibly 17 years old, came from her safe house in upstate New York that she was staying in because they had sequestered her away, for like a year and a half because she couldn't live in that neighborhood anymore. And after all of that, they acquitted him. Why? Because the police framed him. That was his whole thing, that the police framed him, which we did not. The other two testified against him. The young woman was able to identify him. But the Bronx jury was so anti-police that they said, we'll let him go.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there was 3 of them total.
3
They
of them
went
total.
in there, what? And you said it was a drug hit?
Yes, they were stealing drugs from the other guys, drugs and money. Okay, and in order to get what they wanted, they tortured. Well, they killed. They may have killed the one guy immediately. They tortured the other guy, and then probably tortured her too. I don't know, but decided to get rid of her so that she wouldn't be a witness. Shot her in the head, and here it was in the end. The jury, and like I say, some of your district attorney friends may be familiar with that term, a Bronx jury, which was, who knows how long ago that was coined, but it's used all over the place, meaning we're not going to win this case, pal. When it's, that's what they called it, a Bronx jury.
I mean, forensically, well, when did this happen? 90s?
Oh, geez, this would have been 93, maybe, in there. So, forensically, we didn't, and I know, you were our main DNA guy, right? But that really didn't play in to our stuff back then. It was still very, very new.
Yeah.
No,
DNA back then was just, I mean, basically you were just looking for blood types kind of thing. But,
correct.
Touch DNA, DNA off of shell casings and weapons, back then.
But here we had 3 eyewitnesses. We had his two partners who ratted him out, and the victim herself.
Yeah.
And he was still acquitted.
Wow. Well, so once this guy's acquitted, what did he do? Do you have any idea?
Now, rumor has it, and I don't know if it's true, most of these guys end up, we get to know them somewhat personally. And from what I understand, and I don't know if it's the truth, but this is a rumor, he was actually killed by somebody else like 3 years later. And it had come back to me, hey, you remember that guy? Blah, 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 blah. Yep, they got him. Meaning somebody else had taken care of business for us. So, but it was a sad state.
You think about how many lives were destroyed from that, though. It's like,
oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then,
well, that's the thing with drugs too, Jared, that people don't realize is, how drugs really absolutely ravage neighborhoods. And I've said this before, on other podcasts and things too, where people, when I'm explaining it, it's not. People want to do drugs. Americans want to do drugs. There's no getting around that. All right. And that's going to be the hardest part of stopping drugs is that people want to do them. But now here you are, a decent fella, and you're living in a simple building in New York City or, anywhere in the country. And you have, I don't know, maybe you live in a 20 family building. There's 20 apartments in your building. It only takes one to decide they're going to start selling drugs out of that building to destroy your building. Because right now you have every asshole in the neighborhood showing up to buy drugs at all different hours of the day, with your children and your wife walking in and out of there every day. And you might be big, hard, tough, all-American veteran guy, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Because they know who you are. They know where you live. They know that your children are there. They know that your wife is there. What in the world are you going to do? You kind of just got to suck it up, right? Yeah. Now you take that same block, okay, where that one building is, and another drug spot opens down the block. So now maybe you got a heroin spot, and now you got a crack spot over on the other side. Bang. Now the drug activity is doubled, And people don't realize, too, that there may be, I don't know, 5,000 people live on this block, let's just say, okay? Because New York City, again, is a big place, and there's big buildings. There's a lot of people that live there, okay? Yeah. And you have literally, okay, in these 2 drug gangs, maybe 24 people ruining 5,000 lives. Mm-hmm. That's how little it takes to destroy a neighborhood. And then you have neighborhoods in the Bronx, in Los Angeles, in Chicago, Baltimore, Philadelphia, where, the drug spots, 194th Street back in the 90s, all right, between Webster Avenue and Valentine Avenue. All right. It's only about a 4 or 5 block stretch. There were 10 different drug spots right there. Okay. And on the off-shooting blocks, if you added them all up, going a block in either direction off 194th Street, there were probably 20 drug spots. Okay. And all the different, violence, guns, brutality that went along with that. This was directly across the street from Fordham University, one of the greatest schools, not in New York City, in the country. It's a very serious, Fordham University. It's a very serious school. Right across the street, 194th Street in Webster, going up. Now, me and my partner had counted one time, and we probably were off because we probably missed some. And it was something ridiculous, like in a 5-year period where there were like 15, 16 shootings and 8 homicides, okay, in this little 3-4 block area. How do you live like that? And again, most people are decent people. 90% of the world's population are decent people. It's just there's very few that ruin it for everybody else, but it's so concentrated. I remember during the height of the crack epidemic, there was a block in Washington Heights that was supposedly more dangerous than Beirut at the time. That was when all the Marine Corps stuff was going on in Lebanon,
Yeah, the Marine Corps
and
barracks, like the bombing and stuff over
correct.
there. Yeah.
But it was statistically more dangerous to walk down this block in Washington Heights in Manhattan, all right, than it was to take a trip to Beirut. If you want to
it's
play
crazy.
the numbers games, it's crazy. I mean, places like, you get around a lot with your job. You travel all over the place. I mean, when you go down to Philadelphia is the poorest large city in America. Beautiful, physically a beautiful city, I think. There's a lot of things I like about Philly. But my God, the crime that is going on down there now. Baltimore's been lost as a whole, Baltimore's been lost for decades, man.
Oh, I got to tell you a little story about
And
Baltimore.
it's so heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
So I went to a conference in Baltimore a few years ago, and this is before COVID, so it had to be actually 4 or 5 years ago now. And we're right there at the convention center, right downtown, right where the harbor is, and you got the USS Constitution right there, that old warship, for those of you that don't know. And I mean, it's a very touristy area, and that's like the cream of the crop for Baltimore. And that's kind of the area that we were in. Well, me and this girl that was next to me in the booth next to me, we decided, hey, you know what? There's supposed to be a Italian restaurant just a few blocks away. Let's just walk over there and get some lunch. So and literally 3 blocks. So this is 3 blocks away from the best part of Baltimore. You would think that the city fathers of Baltimore would make sure that area was as safe as could possibly be. There was one guy that was literally urinating in a garbage can. He just pulled his pants down and was like going to the bathroom right there on the street in front of everybody. And, we weren't the only people on the street. Here we are walking along, and we're business people visiting from, other areas of the country at this huge forensics conference. And I mean, we're looking at it and I'm like, holy crap. And this is like within a block away from the best tourist area. I'm like, yes. I can't imagine you go 5 more blocks into the city of Baltimore, what that would have been like. And
well, I'm happy for you. You only caught a guy urinating, I had
there were multiple alleyways and stuff like that where you look down there and you're like,
oh, they don't care.
Whatever's going down there, I don't want anything to do with it.
Yep. No, it's very sad. I had not a similar incident at all, a different incident. I was in Philadelphia. We were doing a thing called the Philly FM Fest. It was a big musical fest where it was a great idea. And they did it 2 years in a row. It was like 70 different venues all over the city, had shows at the same time. You could buy one pass, but it entitled you to go anywhere. It was kind of like the Northeast version of South by Southwest, which takes place in Austin, Texas, if you've ever been. And so I was at a show down there, and I stepped outside to get a little bit of air. And just as I step outside, fella, maybe about 35 years old, comes walking around the corner with a gun in his hand. I'm like, oh, shit, right? And he goes right around the corner, and he sets himself up in a doorway. Like, for the people I can see, like this. He kind of set himself in the doorway so people who were just listening, he fit himself so he wouldn't be seen by anybody walking down the block, but was inside the door with a pistol in his hand. Now, I know right away this guy's up to no good, right? He's going to rob somebody, or more likely, possibly even be looking to shoot somebody because of just his whole stance and everything about it. Like a fool, I immediately try to get everybody off the street into the bar, but that wasn't a good idea because then everybody wants to know why I'm trying to do this, right? I get on my cell phone, call 911, I explain what's happening, okay? Police show up, boom, boom. I mean, they were there in 12, 15 seconds after the phone call, they show up. Bad guy steps out, tosses his gun underneath the car, and starts walking towards me back up the block. I was, of course, armed, take my gun out. Oh, you're not going anywhere, pal. Get on the floor. I get him laid down. The police come, lock him up, take his gun, whatever. In Philadelphia, it's only a misdemeanor to have an illegal gun. Okay, so it's not that big of a deal. But this guy had numerous priors before, so they were gonna, try to get him out of conviction. I went. What was it? Probably it could have been definitely over a year later. I actually went to the trial. All right. They could not believe that I showed up. And coming from the Bronx, which was an upside down place, okay, I was actually surprised at how, do I want to say poorly? Because I don't know the inner workings, but just what a mess their court system was. Okay. Obviously, again, way, 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 way overworked, and not able to handle the volume that they were doing. Our turn came up and, the judge says, is the defendant here? Yes, judge. Do we have the witness available? I stood up and I said, yes, ma'am, and the guy turned around and he said, guilty. He pled guilty right away. Again, because if it had gone to trial, he would have got hit harder, but it was only a misdemeanor, which is what shocked me. One of the best things we had ever done, of course, they don't follow these rules in New York City anymore, but back in our time, they had wised up and made any illegal firearm an automatic 1 year, a felony with an automatic 1 year in jail, and the judges could not impose that, and it was the best thing they ever did because it made it so much more costly to be running around the streets with guns, because you knew you were going to go to jail if you got caught.
Thanks for joining us. Your attention today brings us one step closer to exposing and eliminating the evil that brings crime to our communities. Hit subscribe and share this episode. Together, we will bring justice to every victim.